Hey there Planeswalkers, it's Steve for Collector Mania, and I'm here to talk to you about something that's actually pretty exciting. So for us Commander players, we have a brand new format to break into. It's called Brawl, and it's of course just a Commander variant. It's a little bit different. You've got 59 card singleton decks with the addition of your Commander, of course, so bringing it up to a 60 card total. And then we've got a 30-point starting life total, which is a little bit different from Commander, of course, about 10 points lower. Still pretty cushy though at 30 points, should be fine. And then we've got, of course, it being a multiplayer format, and the weird thing is it rotates with standard. So if you think about it, this is going to lower our card pool drastically. We've been used to for years being able to go in the last 25 years of Magic and just pick basically anything we wanted to, and that's given us a lot of power, but in the same time it's kind of, I don't know, muddied the format in a few ways. It's made it a little bit too competitive sometimes, which is weird to say, but it definitely has gotten there. So this, in my opinion, is a fun variation that will kind of breed a lot of creativity. I mean, you're going to be forced to use a lot of cards that you would have never really considered before. So that being said, the first commander that I thought of instantly was Azor. I've been trying to build a commander deck around this guy ever since he was spoiled, and this actually seems to be like the perfect format for him. There are a lot of cards that let us abuse him, especially in the meta that this is going to create, which just sounds odd, but it's definitely going to be a little bit different here. So let's break into the deck really quick. So, of course, thinking about the standard rotation, we've got a few cards in here that will be rotating around, I think, as soon as the next core set comes out. I'm not 100% sure when that is. I think it's like July or something like that, but just keep that in mind. Kaladesh will be cycling out, and then we'll be relying on Amonkhet and Ixalan and then Dominaria. But hopefully Dominaria will add some new pieces to this. But first up, we've got Brawl, Chief of Compliance. This is a perfect card for what we're trying to do, which is essentially cast a lot of instant and sorcery speed spells, and really just win through the game through that kind of value. So we've got a colorless and a blue, legendary creature, human wizard. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 colorless less. Whenever you cast a spell or ability you control, or whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. And we do have quite a few counter spells in here. Next up, we've got Time Stream Navigator. So this is a colorless and a blue human pirate wizard with Ascend. So if you control 10 or more permanents, essentially Ascend turns on. Then you've got 2 colorless, 2 blue, tap, put Time Stream Navigator on the bottom of its owner's library, take an extra turn after this one. Activate this ability only if you have the city's blessing, essentially. So, pretty fragile. It's only 1/1, but really with what we're trying to set up here, and you'll kind of see once we get to the sorceries that there's certain ways that we're trying to win. This can actually become really helpful, just taking an extra turn and maybe just getting there. Then we've got Kefnet the Mindful, so 2 colorless and a blue, flying indestructible, 5/5, which is really powerful. Drawback is you have to have 7 cards in your hand, otherwise it can't block or attack, so keep that in mind. And then it's 3 colors and a blue, draw a card, then you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. So kind of a way to buff your hand if you need some more cards in your hand to turn this guy into a creature able to attack and block, or an interesting way to save lands if you really need to. There's not a whole lot of land destruction in the format, but you never know. Then we've got a Kinjali's Sunwing. So this is a great control piece. So it's a 3 costed 1 white, 2/3 flying creature. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So great for shutting down like those aggro decks, super aggressive decks, and 2/3 flyers are never bad. Then we've got a Nimble Obstructionist. So this is 2 colors and a blue bird wizard, flash flying. It's also got cycling, so that's pretty cool. When you cycle Nimble Obstructionist, counter target activated or triggered ability you don't control. So really powerful, especially for shutting down certain things that could happen. Then we've got a Vizier of Deferment. So this is a pretty interesting include. If you haven't noticed quite yet, we've got a few creatures that actually want to be blinked, Azor being one of the biggest ones. So 2 colors and a blue, human cleric, 2/2 flash. When Vizier of Deferment enters the battlefield, you may exile target creature if it attacked or blocked this turn. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So just a really cool way for us to bounce Azor, and get him to basically just come back in and do his whole ability again and shut down all the spells for our opponent's turns, essentially. And then we've got a Vizier of Tumbling Sands. So there's not a whole lot of ramp in this format, oddly enough. Green really is the only one that gets that benefit. So having things like this, essentially just a guy that can untap a permanent, so a land if you need it, or even Azor if you need it to be. There's a ton of things that this guy can do. Plus he has cycling, he's a 1/3, he's not bad. We've got Angel of Condemnation. Once again, there are a few things in here that we want to bounce. This card's perfect for that, so 2 colors, 2 white, 3/3 Angel, Flying Vigilance. 2 activated abilities, 2 colors and a white, exile another target creature, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, or 2 colors and a white, exert Angel of Condemnation, exile another target creature until Angel of Condemnation leaves the battlefield. So with that one, it's a little bit more permanent, I guess, but also keep in mind it will keep the Angel tapped during the next untap step, so there's that little bit of drawback. Then we've got Vizier of Many Faces. Clone cards are always great, so 2 colors, 2 blue. Basically when it comes in, it becomes a copy of something, and then it has Embalm, which is pretty cool. So you can essentially play it from the graveyard, 3 colors and 2 blue, and then it becomes a token of itself, and you exile this card. So Embalm's pretty cool, actually. Then we've got Angel of Invention. This is another one of those big cards that will cycle out here pretty soon, so 3 colors, 2 white, Flying Vigilance, Lifelink, so keyword soup. Other creatures you control get +1/+1, so that turns Azor into a 7/7. It's also got Fabricate 2. When this creature enters the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, or create 2 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. So either way, you're creating a little bit of an army, or you're buffing this creature. I'm not 100% sure if they've said anything about commander damage quite yet. I don't think there's going to be such a thing. You know, who knows? But keeping stuff like this in mind, you know, Azor, once again, is a pretty big body, so if that ever does become a thing, Azor could definitely be a powerhouse. And I've got Angel of Sanctions, so 3 colors, 2 white. Essentially, it comes into play, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Angel of Sanctions leaves. It's also got Embalm, so 5 colors and a white. You can bring it back from your graveyard as a token. It's also a 3/4, so pretty powerful that way. Then Cataclysmic Gearhulk, so of course we're playing a little bit of the control game, so having, you know, board wipes is great. So 3 colors, 2 white, Vigilance. Basically, when it enters the battlefield, each player chooses an artifact, creature, an enchantment, and a Planeswalker from among the non-land permanents he or she controls and sacrifices the rest. So basically a good way to, you know, keep the board tame. It's also a 4/5, which is pretty good as well. Then Cloud Blazer. I'm going to be really sad when this one rotates. So 3 colors, a white and a blue. Flying. When Cloud Blazer enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. It's also a 2/2 with flying. So this is essentially the Muldrifter of our new format, and it's going to suck because it's going to leave pretty soon. So use it while you can. Then Torrential Gearhulk, another amazing card. This is our Snapcaster essentially. So 4 colors, 2 blue, flash. Enters the battlefield, you may cast a target instant card from your graveyard without paying its mana costs. So, as I said earlier, there's quite a few instances in here that we want to continue to use over and over again, so this is definitely a great addition here. It's a 5/6, which is also pretty good as a finisher as well. Then we've got Unesh, Cryosphinx Sovereign, so 4 colors, 2 blue, flying. Sphinx spells you cast cost 2 colors less, so that could be really cool because there is such a thing as commander tax in this as well, so each time Azor goes to the command zone, it costs 2 more, so this makes it cost 6 again, or, you know, 8, so on and so forth. Also, when Unesh, Cryosphinx Sovereign, or another Sphinx enters the battlefield under control, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put one of those piles into your hand and the other into your graveyard, so a little bit of a fact fiction there. Then we've got a Whisper Weaver Angel, so another good blinking creature, so 4 colors, 2 blue, or 2 white, sorry. Flying. When Whisper Weaver Angel enters the battlefield, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So great thing to do with Azor, or any of those, like Cloud Blazer would be amazing with this, so just a good body, really. And then moving on from our creatures, we're getting to our artifacts here. So I don't know if mill's going to be a thing. I mean, I would definitely try and build a mill deck. I'm sure there's enough pieces to get it done, so having something like Perpetual Timepiece, which is essentially our elixir. It's funny, I have to try and find like replacements for all the ridiculous cards that we've had for years. So 2 colorless, tap, put 2 cards off, put 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, so a little bit of self-mill, I guess. Then it has 2 colors, exile, Perpetual Timepiece, shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library, so it'll work. Then we've got 2 ramp spells here. Cultivator's Caravan, so 3 colorless, tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, so it's okay. It can also be crewed for 3 to be a 5/5 ground creature, which isn't bad either. And then we've got Manalith, which is good old Manalith. Like I said, we're pretty limited on what we can actually use here, so 3 colorless, tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I believe we are moving on to our enchantments next. So first up, we've got Authority of the Consuls, which is going to be, once again, really sad to see leave. It's a 1 white enchantment that says creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, which is really powerful. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain 1 life. So great for the strategy that we're trying to do here. Then we've got an As Foretold. So 2 colorless and a blue. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a time counter on As Foretold. Once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast without converted mana cost X or less, where X is the number of time counters on As Foretold. So this is our Aether Vial, and this is all we got. This is probably one of the most powerful enchantments in the entire format, so play with it while you can. We've got a little bit with it since it is in Amonkhet, so we've got some time. But yeah, I would definitely build some things around this, and it's, like I said, it's an absolutely ridiculous card. Then we're breaking into our instance here. First up, we've got Negate, just a good old counterspell. I think this one pretty much hits everything that we want to besides creatures, so yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. So a colorless and a blue, counter target non-creature spell. Yeah, awesome. Then we've got Pull from Tomorrow. This is our Sphinx's, not our Sphinx's Revelation, but yeah, our Blue Sun Zenith is what I was trying to say. So X and 2 blue, draw X cards and discard a card. So pretty good for the format. Then we've got Acrobatic Maneuver. Once again, we're trying to blink a few things. So 2 colors and a white, exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its own control. You also get to draw a card, which is pretty good. Then we've got Disallow, another one I'm going to hate to see go. So a colorless and 2 blue, counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. This card is a house in regular Commander, so it's just going to be that much more ridiculous here, really. Then I've got Forsake the Worldly. This is probably one of the best artifact and or enchantment removals in the entire format. Like, the fact that it exiles and it also has cycling on it is extremely powerful. So if you don't need it, you just cycle it away. If you really need to get rid of something, you get to exile it. So I mean, there's so much utility here. It's a really powerful card. Even in regular Commander, I like playing this card. Then we got Release to the Wind, so 2 colors and a blue, instant, exile target non-land permanent. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may cast it without paying its mana cost. So if you think about it, once again with Azor and a few of our creatures, we want to be casting them again, so having something like this to essentially blink them, really, at sorcery speed, which isn't bad, because yeah, it actually works for what we're trying to do. I highly recommend taking a look at this card. I've been adding it into quite a few decks, even in regular Commander, so like Brago, this is a really great card there. Yeah, so take a look at this one. It's interesting. It's a little bit different, but definitely interesting. And then we've got Commit and Memory, so 3 colors and a blue, instant. Put target spell or non-land permanent into its owner's library second from the top, so kind of an interesting tuck/counter ability, but really what we're after once again here is Memory. So 4 colors and 2 blue, you can only cast this from your graveyard. That's what Aftermath means, essentially. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draws 7 cards. So a great way for us to kind of reshuffle the game and restart it, you know, as far as like graveyards go. So if we are playing against a graveyard deck, or we just need all of our stuff back and we're running out and we're getting close to getting milled out, great way to save ourselves there. Then I've got Insidious Will. So 2 colors, 2 blue, choose 1. Modal spells are amazing, they're the best. So 3 options here: counter target spell. You may choose new targets for a target spell, or copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So really great, it can do a lot of things for us. Awesome spell. And then we're moving into our sorceries here. We've got a Flood of Recollection. So 2 blue, sorcery, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, exile Flood of Recollection. And I've got Secrets of the Golden City, so this is another Ascend card, so we're trying to get City's Blessing here. So a colorless 2 blue, draw 2 cards. If you have the City's Blessing, draw 3 cards. I know this seems like a very underwhelming card, but I've been playing around with it in Pauper, Pauper Commander specifically, and it's actually really powerful, and you know, it's not a bad, it's like a Divination essentially, which I normally play in a lot of my decks anyway, so pretty powerful. And then one of the best board wipes in the entire set, so 3 colors, 2 white, destroy all creatures. You gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way, so extremely powerful once again. It'll gain you a ton of life and just get rid of all the problems that you need it to get rid of. Then we've got Hour of Revelation. So 3 colors, 3 white. Basically, if there are 10 or more non-land permanents on the battlefield, this costs 3 less, so 3 white's pretty good for that. Pretty good cost for what it does, destroy all non-land permanents. Yeah, pretty powerful. And then we've got essentially one of our win conditions, and that's Approach of the Second Sun. So it's kind of funny, I based this deck around the Challenger deck that's coming out here pretty soon. So this is kind of like a pre-morph into Commander, if you will. So 6 colors and a white, if Approach the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library 7th from the top and you gain 7 life. So this just naturally goes with Azor in my opinion. You have a way to draw to it essentially with Azor after you cast it. I mean, if you've got a ton of mana, you can essentially get to it quicker and just cast it again and win the game. There are a ton of draw spells in here. I mean, there's a lot of ways to make this work, especially if you can shut all of your opponents down from casting instants and sorceries, you know, and all kinds of awesome stuff. So yeah, great spell. Great finisher here. Then we've moved on to our lands here, so we've got Arch of Araska, so it's got Ascend, so City's Blessing once again. It taps for a colorless, which I know that's out of basically what we're trying to do, especially with the steep mana cost that we have on our commander, but it's got pay 5, tap, draw a card, activate this ability only if you have City's Blessing. We want to draw as many cards as we can. This just seems like a great way to include a spell into our land slot, so really cool. Then we've got Desert of the Mindful, so not a whole lot of choices as far as lands go here, so you'll see a few ones that you may not normally run, but in this format they could be great. So this is basically just a cycle land, you pay 2, discard it, draw a card, so when you're just getting land flooded in your hand you can at least do something and potentially draw not a land. Same thing here, Desert of the True, this is just the white version. Then we've got Endless Sands, so this is a tech card for Azor and basically what we're trying to do, which is like blue-white blink. So it taps for a colorless, or you can pay 2, tap, exile target creature you control, and then also you can pay 4, tap, sacrifice Endless Sands, return each creature card exiled with Endless Sands to the battlefield under its owner's control. So, for instance, if something's already going to get removed, or if there's a board wipe happening and you just want to save something, it's really cool just to like grab it with the 2-cost ability and then just play it again later. Like I said earlier, there's not a ton of land destruction in the format, so something like this should be a lot safer in this, you know, smaller variant of Commander than it is in regular Commander, so you should be able to abuse it a little bit, you know, more. Then Evolving Wilds, we all know what this does. Sacrifice Evolving Wilds, search your library for a basic land. Basically just whatever we need, put into play tapped. It's our only fetch land! And then we've got Field of Ruin. Well, I guess this is a fetch land too, never mind. I misspoke. So tap, add a colorless, or pay 2, tap, sacrifice Field of Ruin, destroy target non-basic land, and an opponent controls. Each player searches his or her library for a basic land card, puts it on the battlefield, then shuffles his or her library. So one of the very few ways that we can destroy lands like, I don't know, Cradle, the new Cradle, sorry I shouldn't say Cradle. But there are a few, you know, those flip lands and stuff like that that we don't really want to see, so this is one of the ways to get rid of them. And then of course Glacial Fortress, great that it's in the format. Being able to have a land that taps for both white and blue, and basically most of the time will come into play untapped as long as we have a plains or an island, really powerful. And also we've got an irrigated farmland, so another land that dual land essentially. This one does have cycling, so you can cycle it away. It also has the typing plains and island. I doubt that's ever going to come up in our format, but you never know, so we'll see. And then just a bunch of islands, and then a bunch of plains. I think I'm still kind of formulating how many lands I specifically want to run. I think it's 25, that's the way I set up the list so far. But I'm going to play around with that a little bit. I haven't actually been able to play test this much. So we'll see where I kind of land on that, but for now, like I said, about 25, 24 lands is where I'd end up. I would probably just do an even split of the plains and islands here. I think the non-basic lands are about 8, so somewhere, you know, some number. But some stuff I wanted to talk to you about past the lands here are things that we can add from Dominaria that have already been spoiled. The first thing I really wanted to say was you could actually switch this to Teferi as soon as, you know, he gets released. So if you want to play a little bit more like differently, I guess, you know, a little bit wilder and use the Planeswalker as your commander, keeping in mind that is allowed now in this format specifically, Teferi is a great switch, or Teferi is a great addition to the deck. So he's a 3-colorless white-blue legendary Planeswalker, Teferi. He starts with 4 loyalty. His +1 is draw a card at the beginning of the next end step, untap 2 lands, which is pretty powerful. Then you've got -3, put target non-land permanent into its owner's library, 3rd from the top, so once again pretty powerful. Then the -8 is absolutely ridiculous. You get an emblem with whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent opponent controls. In a format that's pretty light on removal in comparison to what we're used to, this is actually extremely powerful. Keep in mind it's going to get really hard to beat, you know, to get up to 8 loyalty and then, you know, do this, but that's why it's an ultimate, and it's definitely game breaking. Another great addition is Urza's Ruinous Blast. We'll have to see about this one. It may not be that great, considering that we're going to get a ton of legendaries in the next set, essentially, so this might not be all that crazy, but anyway, 4 colors and a white. You may cast a legendary sorcery only if you control a legendary creature or planeswalker, so there's that clause. Exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary, so really powerful removal. I mean, exile is definitely a thing still, so yeah, we'll see. Then we've got Karn's Temporal Sundering, so 4 colors, 2 blue. Once again, same kind of clause, you can only cast it if you can control a legendary creature or a planeswalker. And it has target player takes an extra turn after this one, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, exile Karn's Temporal Sundering. So once again, taking extra turns is always good, especially when we're trying to like do a easy win with something like the Second Sun or what, I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, having something like this is always great. You know, taking extra turns will usually win us the game for the most part. Then we've got Baird, Steward of Argive. So 2 colors, 2 white, legendary creature, human soldier, vigilance. Creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1 colors for each of those creatures. And it's a 2/4, which is actually pretty relevant. It's a great way to stop people from attacking us. Once again, we don't have, you know, like propaganda or any of those type of effects, so this is as close as we can get. Still really powerful though. Then we've got the Mirari Conjecture, so 4 colors and a blue. This is a saga card, so as this saga enters and after your draw step, add a lore counter, sacrifice after 3. Really interesting, I'm still getting used to this. So first one is return target instant card from your graveyard to your hand. Sorry, not instant or sorcery. Still really powerful. Second one is return target sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So once again, pretty powerful. And then 3, until end of turn, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it, you may choose new targets for the copy. So really cool card, works great with our deck, and if you think about it, our kind of wacky win condition, Approach of the Second Sun, essentially you just win the game when you cast that if you're on number 3. So really powerful, really good way to sneak a win. And then we've got Oath of Teferi. So as I talked about, you can make Teferi your commander, or you could just add Teferi into the deck, or any of the planeswalkers that are currently in Standard. This card will work great with all of them, but as an Azor deck, this card is actually really cool too. So 3 colors, a white and a blue. When Oath of Teferi enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent you control, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So basically just a blink for 5, not bad. Also says you may activate the loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control twice each turn, or rather than once, only once. So once again, if you're switching to Teferi, this card's a house. I picture this thing being in every Super Friends deck from here till the end of time now, so it's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, really cool card. And then just another mana rock, so 3 colorless, tap, add 1 colorless for each artifact you control named Power Stone Shard. Unfortunately, we're only ever really going to have 1, so it'll only tap for 1 though, so not bad, especially in a format that's pretty mana rock light. And that is the last card, so I hope you guys have enjoyed our first delve into Brawl. Like I said, this is kind of like a precursor to Morphin Commander. So we will be putting those stacks up here pretty soon. I think this is the route that we're going to go with them. So instead of our regular spiel where we take a a challenge deck or a any type of pre-made deck and turn it into a commander deck. We're actually going to just turn it into a commander brawl deck, just to kind of make things a little bit different and interesting for you guys. So anyway, with that, we will see you guys next time, and thanks for watching.